Hi, listeners. This is a quick thank you for listening and for your ongoing support. If you're enjoying the program, please consider clicking the follow or subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. There's no better way to support us than doing that or sharing the show with a friend, colleague, family member, or any new or expecting parent in your life. It's totally appreciated. On with the show. Hi, I'm Sarah Trott, and welcome to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I'm a new mama, and this podcast is all about postpartum care for the first few months following birth, the time period also known as the fourth trimester. My postpartum doula, Esther Gallagher, is my co-host. She's a mother, grandmother, perinatal educator, birth and postpartum care provider. Fourth trimester care, our topic, is about the practical, emotional, and social support parents and baby require. And importantly, it helps set the tone for the continuing journey of parenting. Hi, this is Sarah Trott, and welcome back to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I am here with a guest today. Her name is Michelle Olsen, and we are going to be talking about navigating the return to work and finding purpose and balance as a new parent. And this is a huge topic, right? Returning to work after you have a baby is personal, it's emotional, and some parents are really eager to dive back into their work life and their careers, and other parents aren't, right? They might feel a lot of feelings that are trepidation and just heartache around the thought of leaving their little one. So no matter where you fall on the spectrum, navigating this shift can be challenging. To talk about this today, I mentioned we have Michelle Olsen. She's a career coach and founder of Greenlight. And she specializes in helping women find clarity and purpose during their career transitions. So over 17 years ago, Michelle made a life-changing transition from the corporate world to coaching and really discovered her life's purpose was supporting others through those meaningful career changes and life changes. And she has a master's degree in organizational psychology, and she is a certified professional co-active coach, CPCC. Michelle will be sharing insights with us on making that back to work transition with intention, finding the right balance of purpose in your life and the right balance for your family, and creating a plan that really aligns with your values. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Michelle, do you want to go ahead and give yourself a little bit more of an intro in your own words?
Sure. Let's see. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter that's 15 and a son that's 12. I also have a fur baby. Ginger's our Vishla, and she's 4. And I love working at the intersection of coaching, psychology, and spirituality. I feel like that's the magic of working through any transition, but especially during the big transition of a parent returning to work. I would say that my fascination with work started at a very young age. I remember watching my parents work and their relationship with work. And as a child, just being curious, like, what is this thing that they go to and that they do? And they come home and sometimes they're happy and sometimes they're cranky, and just has always been a fascinating piece that I've never lost a passion for trying to understand the human psychology and work.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I like to ask people, since you're a mom, about your own fourth trimester experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was with my first child. Beyond just like the magic of all of a sudden this little being is in your arms that you've been carrying for 9 months, I remember having this shift where all of a sudden I realized, oh, my orientation is always going to be focused on this little being, right? Like there's the before life of your focus gets to be on you or your partner if you're partnered. And then all of a sudden it's a different story when this precious little being comes. And so it was that adjustment, just the life orientation adjustment. There was the sleep adjustment. There was the feeding. All of those adjustments were the feeding adjustment hit a hard spot for me at like 6 weeks where I was breastfeeding and my milk dropped. But overall, I remember when I was getting ready to return to work, I could not figure out how the heck I was going to keep caring for this precious little baby and go back to my paid work life. It seemed really overwhelming for me. And I would say that at the time, this was over 15 years ago, I had put so much attention and focus on the labor and the birth part, like prepping for that, that when baby came, it was also a big aha, like, oh, it's not just about labor and birth. Now I have this being with me for the rest of my life, right? Even to the adult years. And so reorienting to that was also something that I realized at that time was really lacking. And so I love that you're doing this show, Sarah, because I think we need so much support when baby comes. And there's a lot of support, thankfully, for prepping for labor and birth, and a lot less support for when baby arrives, although it's getting better.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story and making those points. There's so much focus on the birth and getting ready for that. And then it's really just the beginning of something completely new.
Yeah.
It's not an event, right? That you just you do it and then you're like, okay, back to my normal life. And it's very eye-opening for a lot of folks. In fact, part of the inspiration for me starting the show
Yes.
was how eye-opening it was, right?
Yeah.
So tell me more. Tell me about the challenges, some of the challenges that parents face when they're returning back to work and how they can proactively address some of those things.
Yeah. So the biggest one, following our conversation here, is identity. One of the tools that I use in the workshop that I lead is having an awareness that when the mother is born, baby being born, births the mother, identity, there is a loss. And this is a piece that I find really important to talk about, that there's also there's grief that happens at the loss of one identity and the gaining of another identity. And what I often say to these new moms is that, especially in your work life, if you've worked a certain way, a lot of moms that come to work with me gave a lot to their work life. We're working 50, 60 hours a week. When babe comes, you can't work that way anymore. Let me say it this way. You can work that way. You can do that. But a lot of the moms are coming to this workshop because they don't want to work that way anymore. And they want to have more of a sense of alignment with their new identity as mom. And so what I speak to is that the loss of identity doesn't mean that that part of you goes away, the non-mother part of you. It's still a part of you, but it has to integrate. It has to integrate into how you're leading your life now with this new orientation of tracking a baby, of navigating your relationship with a baby if you're in partnership. So that's one thing. It's just name your identities. If that person, is a mom, is a partner or wife, or is a sister or a daughter, all the different identities, all the different roles that we have, just being aware of that can offer a huge perspective to what this new chapter in your life has to offer. And so that's one piece, is having that, just looking at the identity piece, grieving, this change. You will forever be a mom, no matter what happens from here on out. The second thing that comes up a lot is how to communicate with your manager, right? And so I get people from all different industries, but one of the important factors that comes up is I don't want to work the way I was working. And so how do I communicate that? And one of the concepts I talk a lot about in organizational psychology, there's a concept theory called the psychological contract. And the psychological contract begins when we interview for a new position. And so when we're interviewing for a new position, the contract of the job is clear. This is the job, the name of the job, the description of the job, the payment of the job. But what isn't named is how do you communicate? How do I communicate? How do you negotiate? How do I negotiate? How do you deal with conflict? How do you, how does this back and forth, all of these, what I would call the intangibles. And when you've been with an organization or a company for a long time, it's hard to renegotiate the psychological contract, because as humans, we can get very adept at habits, rhythms that we're in with people. And so to all of a sudden shift that, it can be a lot of work. But when you've left an organization for paternity leave for a certain amount of time, I call it this free pass of being able to reset the psychological contract. So it's an excellent time to contact your manager right before you're going to go to work. And a couple things. one, if your childcare situation is one where you have to leave work early, then let the manager know. I'll be leaving at 4. I have to go get my baby, or 4:30 or whatever the time is that might be different than when you previously left. I'm going to go take care of my, be in my family nest for a few hours. And then if need be, I'll get back online at 8 or 9 p.m. and check emails, right? So just transparency is so important in communication. So be honest and, say what will work for you and what won't. It's also an opportunity to look at reduced, a lot of companies are allowing this like coming back to work at 50%, 75%, 80%, 90% building up back to 100%. So find out if that would be something that your company would do. And then the last thing I'll say about that before I move to the next topic that comes up a lot in the workshop is if your company or organization has not allowed it before, don't let that stop you from asking. I think one of the biggest things we can do, especially for women, is not ask for what we want. And we have huge value in the organization, especially if we've been there a year or more. We have investment in relationships. We have investment in certain projects that we're doing. This is across industries, right? With nuance in each industry. But I have found subjectively, just in my research, this is not, I haven't done an actual research project, but just subjectively, and the people I've worked with, 95% of people get what they ask for. So I really encourage, if anyone's listening and you're in this position, just ask. Because even if they don't meet your request, they might meet you halfway, and you would not know if you didn't ask. And you made an assumption that because it hadn't been done before, it can't be done this time. The other thing that comes up a lot is relationship, right? And so a lot of times what new moms will bring forth is, how do I tend to my relationship as I'm tending to a baby? I want to say this thing, and it's not to scare people, but I just want to give this statistic that I learned years ago, that when people divorce, if you're in a monogamous relationship and you're in a marriage, people will typically divorce within the first 3 years of having a child, or once their children leave for college. What do they call that? Empty nester. So either the empty nester stage, those are the highest times of divorce rates, right? And so I say that because when you're in that phase of, I'm tending to my baby, but my partner needs me, but I can't emotionally tend to my partner, or we can't even find time together, or we can't get a date night, or we don't even have a moment to breathe, I really suggest finding 5 minutes a day. And so one of the suggestions that I make in my workshop is, at the end of the day, do a couple appreciations for each other. Because one of the things that will often happen is one partner will often feel like they're not getting the attention that they deserve, or what they're doing, because you're both doing new things. You're not getting appreciated for all that you're doing. And so it really makes a difference if you sit down eyeball to eyeball, no phones, no devices, babe's asleep, and just say, hey, I saw you take out the trash. I really appreciate that. Or, hey, I saw you, do the dishes. I really appreciate that. Or, hey, I saw that when the baby was upset, you just scooped that baby up and comforted, whatever it is. Or, hey, I really noticed when you put your hand on my shoulder, it really made a difference that you knew I was, maybe stressed out in the moment. So find ways to appreciate each other. And then if you can level up from there, I would really encourage finding times to be together, date night, or even walk during the day, or whatever you can do to create some kind of semblance where you're checking in, so your partnership is getting attention and getting fueled just like you're fueling and giving attention to your baby. Okay, and then the last piece that comes up is our bodies, and our health is often another piece that comes in, and how to tend to your body and keep your body active or healthy in a way that feels good to you. And so what I have found is, if you're a birthing person who was moving your body prior to having your baby, you'll probably have an easier way to moving your body, meaning you've had some kind of habit of exercise or some kind of habit of moving. If you're someone who did not have that, it's a much harder thing to start after having your baby. And so one of my tricks with that is always a small baby step. And the small baby step is, maybe you put on your work outfit and then don't do anything. Just celebrate that you put on your workout clothes and just be like, okay, I got my workout clothes. Yay. And then you go, okay, I got my workout clothes and I'm going to do like a 10-minute walk, maybe up and down the block somewhere, right? And you do that. So you slowly build up. You slowly get back to what movement you can do. You can also do things where you're, if you're holding your baby or you're out with your baby or something, maybe you start doing, remember this person, when I was a new mom, this personal trainer telling me like, just do squats, like while you're holding your baby, like just do some squats. Or, if they're doing tummy time, you can like do a plank over them or a downward dog over them. All these ways that we can move our body that just are different than what we could do prior to having it. So those are the main topics that often come up in the workshop, and that, as parents, we're navigating a lot when we return back to work. And so we're looking at all those different areas.
I mean, those are all such important topics, right? There's your physical, emotional well-being, your relationship, the transition in identity. Those are all huge, right? And so I appreciate the overview of what comes up in your workshops. And I feel like with the exercise point too, especially if you're someone who did have that exercise routine before, if you're working full time, the time that you exercise tends to be when you get home from work or beforehand or on the weekends. And now that you have a baby in your life, those are the times that you're, when you're with them, when you're at home or you're not engaged at work, even if you work from home, right? When you're not in front of your computer, you really want to be with that baby.
Yes.
Right? You want that quality time. So it can be really challenging just to figure out how to rebalance and carve out that time and negotiate trade-offs. It's all trade-offs, right?
Yes.
Like, what am I gonna change? I also really appreciated your point about asking for what you want.
Yes.
And there is a lot of flexibility for many companies. And, you might get half of what you asked for, or they might offer something different. So I really like that point. Definitely ask, what are some things people ask for? You mentioned the graduation of 50% time, being part-time and then building back up to full-time. I don't know. Personally, I think there's some people that might have a hard time with that because once you're in it, you just want to be in it. And I would caution anyone who has that inkling to just think maybe, well, you don't want to go back in and get paid for half, but when you're actually doing all the work, like get what you deserve.
That is such a good point. I mean, that is a good point. And I think there have been women I've worked with who have asked for the 50% and then thought they would do that for 3 weeks. And then after a week just went back to full time. So that is a really good perspective to bring into this. I find that people often are asking for more of a gradual uptick to working back to full time. That's one thing. The other thing is asking for delegating their work, like looking at the work that they do and realizing they were able to complete their full job because they were working 50 or 60 hours a week, and then going to their manager and if they can ask specifics, like I need to have this part of my job cut out, can someone else take it? That's another ask that I see people ask for. Another, I guess the third thing they ask for too is extended time. So maybe if the organization or company only gave 3 months maternity leave, asking for an additional month off, that's something else that I see. Those are the three I would say I hear most that they're asking for.
Yeah. We actually just had a great episode I'll mention, and we'll link to it in the show notes too, with a woman who is the mom attorney. And she actually talked about how, there's so much variance between states and the rules here in the US around time off and maternity leave. And there is no such thing as maternity leave. It's just leave and different types of leave you can take. But I kind of recommend anyone who's thinking about taking a longer period of time or wanting to extend that as much as possible, listen to that episode too, because there are some interesting ways to cobble different types of disability and dependent care leave. So you can actually get a lot more than what may be presented to you on the face of it by your HR team, who are well-meaning and probably don't know all the details either, right? It's sometimes maybe you're the first person in your little company to have a kid. They might not know. So I just would say ask for it and also do your research and come to the table with the knowledge that's specific to where you live. That can be really, really helpful.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Parenting doesn't come with a manual, but what if it came with a co-pilot? Meet Hello Gaia, the AI-powered parenting assistant that's always there for you when you need it most. From pregnancy to postpartum and as your child grows, Hello Gaia offers fast, reliable answers to your most pressing questions. What makes Hello Gaia different? It's built on trusted sources like the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC. No endless scrolling, no questionable advice, just the support you need when you need it. Hello Gaia works hand in hand with your care providers, serving as your 24/7 virtual partner on this incredible journey of parenthood. Endorsed by leading perinatal professionals, Hello Gaia is here to empower you, guide you, and remind you that you're never alone. Ready to parent with confidence? Say hello to Hello Gaia, your parenting co-pilot. Go to hellogaia.ai, that's HELLOGAIA.ai for your free account today. Hello Gaia, always here, always trusted. Hey listeners, great news. We've partnered with Every Mother, your go-to destination for evidence-based and on-demand exercise therapy regimens. Whether you're dealing with diastasis recti, preparing for birth, or navigating postpartum recovery, Every Mother has your back. With personalized daily routines tailored to your core and pelvic floor needs, they're here to support you every step of the way. Say hello to a stronger, healthier you with Every Mother. Visit fourthtrimesterpodcast.com/everymother for 10% off your personalized express exercise routine. The discount link is also on our deals page alongside lots of other amazing exclusive discounts and deals. Again, it's fourthtrimesterpodcast.com with fourth spelled out FOURTH.
And do you talk to parents who, once they have their baby, they have a lot of feelings around not wanting to go back?
Yes. Yeah. And this is a hard one. Yes, this is a hard one because there are parents that I've worked with who are excited to go back. You know, what I can say, this is more of a personal sharing, is that I think as parents, we thrive at different chapters of our children's development phases. So some parents really thrive in the baby years. Some parents really thrive in the mid years, and some parents really thrive in the teenage years. Like, I just think that there can be that nuance. And so for those who are really savoring the baby years, it can be a hard thing to leave. I hear it a lot. I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to leave my baby with anyone else, but maybe my partner if they're a partnered parent. And so one of the things that I suggest with that is, well, what is your lifestyle? What is your budget? Because for some people, they might have those resources where they realize, actually, I could take a year off and we would be okay. We would make these adjustments to our budget and we'd be okay. For others, and this is more what happens, especially if it's local parents in the Bay Area, because we live in a very expensive part of the world, it's not as much an option to not work. It's rent, mortgage, food, cars, whatever. Like there's things that need to be paid for, and they need to have that income included with their partner. And so I take the approach of always feeling the sadness. Like, I think it's really important to not overstep what we're feeling. If we're feeling anxious or we're feeling sad, like, first and foremost, acknowledge that, name that, be with that. And then the second thing is, then what are your options? And this would go back to our previous conversation, Sarah, where, okay, what are your options? If you have to work, but do you have to work full time? Is it like, if you work part-time, could that meet your financial budget? That's an option. Look at that. If you realize it's absolutely, I have to work full time, then it becomes about, how do I make that time I do have with my baby quality time? And there's a woman by the name of Karen Mazine, and she wrote this book called Zen Mama years and years and years ago. And in the book, she talked about, if we can get at minimum 10 quality minutes with our baby a day, that's great, right? So it's shifting our perspective to be like, it's not ideal. I want, often moms in this phase, or what they're feeling is they want to be with their babe 24/7. But like, if you can start to just navigate, well, what is it that I could feel good about? Like, okay, I get this amount of time with my babe, or I co-sleep. I've seen parents who be like, I'm going to bring my babe in bed and I'm going to co-sleep. So then I have the whole night with them physically near me. I have my mornings and I have my evenings. So it's just looking at what you have to work with and how to tend to that need, because it is a need, right? It's a need. It's a value. It's important that we honor that and then work within the constraints that we're able to work with based on financial responsibilities and financial obligations.
Yeah, to the heartache point at the start, it's a real challenge if you know that it's an absolute necessity for your life and your family to go back to work, but your feelings are saying one thing and your head is saying another. You've got to reconcile those two things. And so I appreciate you starting off the point about talking about it and naming it. Do you see some people seeking out therapy and support for some of that?
Definitely. Yeah. You see people, I think this is the other thing about, definitely seeking out therapy. And then I want to add to that is that I definitely think this is, we have life is always in transition, right? There's always some kind, seasons change, age of our children change. Like there's always these different chapters of our life. And I think having a baby, the baby chapter, this fourth trimester that you're so leading the charge in for us is an incredible transformation time in our life where we're really reevaluating our whole life, and some of it we can't do anything about. Like I often talk about, what do you have to put on the shelf? Like, what is it you just can't look at right now? You don't have time for, and put that on the shelf. But I definitely think tending to those feelings with a therapist when they're really intense. Like I recently worked with someone and she was having a lot of big feelings about it and she needed to get extra support around that. And I think it's important that we get we find those spaces where that can be held with a lot of care and compassion and love, because it matters.
Yeah, it does. And we've given the advice many, many times on this program with various perinatal professionals talking about the importance of having a talk therapist, your psychologist or psychiatrist in place even prior to having the baby, even if you didn't have one before. This is a good example of like a great topic and something to work through, but just generally for the identity shift or for any other feelings that might come up, especially for people with a family history. So
yes,
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Love that point.
Yeah.
What about people who are feeling a little bit guilty, right? For wanting to go back or not? Like either way, there can be guilt. Like how do you help people reframe that feeling?
Yeah. Meaning that they feel guilty because they're excited about going back to work? Is that what you mean?
Either way, right?
Okay.
Either like, oh, I'm excited, but should I like the shoulds of like, should
Yes.
I actually be wanting to with my baby, or the reverse of like, oh, I have to go back and I should really be there with them. And like, I think it's like either way.
Yeah. Yeah. From a coaching perspective, the core of how I like to work, most coaches like to work, is at value, like puts values at the center of everything. And so when we have an upset or we have a feeling of guilt or we have frustration, it's typically a value isn't being met. And so we want to look at what that value is. And so how I would work with someone is, let's get clear on what your top 10 or 15 values are. And this is also what I do with the new moms, is like how our values are our essence of who we are. They don't really change over our lifetime, but the priority of our values definitely change in different chapters of our life. And so if a mom is dealing with guilt, I think it's an excellent opportunity to go, okay, well, what is it that you value? And a lot of times guilt can be this competing value piece or competing priority piece where they are, let's take the mom or parent who's excited to go back to work, right? They're saying, I really love what I do. I'm passionate about the work I do. And am I too excited? And am I leaving my baby? And so then it's just breaking that down. Well, what is really true here? You really love your work and you really love being a mom and you're choosing to do both. Like that's the other piece I think that often gets missed is you're never not a mom. Like even if you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you are still a mom. That doesn't change because you've left your baby. You're still, even if you're still responsible for getting the child care that's being provided to your baby, you're still thinking about your baby. You're still taking your baby to the doctor or making those appointments. You're never not a mom. You just happen to not physically be there. So just looking at the perspective, looking at the values, having them counterbalance that. I think the should land, when I hear should, it always gets my little coaching hat up around what's inner critic. Where are we self-judging? And I think, I speak a lot with my new moms around parent oppression and how there, we have there's an interesting view in the society where if there's a pregnant woman walking down the street, everyone's like, oh my God, like there's like this excitement and life and joy and, can I touch your belly? That same woman could be walking down that same street, passing those same people 3 months later with the baby and a carrier, and they're like, get out of my way. You're taking up space, right? I'm being a little exaggerating here, but there's a way where once your babe or your child has arrived, there's a way that we can really be invisible to the emotional labor that's being done by parents. And I'm going to say particularly women in our society. And so when I hear should, I always think, okay, wait a minute, let's untangle this should. Where is this coming from? Is this coming from you or is this coming from society? Is this coming from you or is this coming from your great grandmother, right? Is this coming from you or is this coming from something in your past, some religious institution or something that actually isn't yours to take on? So that's how I would work with that.
Yeah, perfect. So like setting a clear understanding of someone's values right from the beginning of the process is really helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's helpful for anyone in any life stage.
Yes.
Is getting to know yourself and what you really value and challenging. Like, is this just because I was raised and that's how my parents did it or my family did it? Or like what's different about what I value in my life. And then for parenting, how do I want to be the parent I want to be? Which is also basically the title of a really great book by Janice Kaiser. I'll link to that book as well because I love that book. Okay, cool. Oh, one thing I wanted to go back to was like you were talking about going back maybe part-time or whatever. I think one of the bigger fears I've heard also from parents going back to work is that they're worried that they might be discriminated against in some way, or they might be worried about like not being able to grow in their career or get promoted or whatnot. I mean, there's some legalities around job protection to an extent, but also how does that come up in your workshops that you work with?
No, that's great. I definitely hear that. Here's my guidance coaching towards that is I always go on your deathbed at the end of your life. What is going to matter? And inevitably, what I hear 100% of the time is I loved well, I felt loved, my children knew I loved them, my family knew I loved them. It all comes back to relationships. And one of my nearest and dearest is social worker who works in hospice. And she's been doing it for 20 years. And she's never heard anyone say on their deathbed, I wish I worked more. I wish I got that promotion. That is not what's being thought about when we're at the end of our life. With that said, I think your career, if you're taking a year or two off, you can still find your way back. And organizations are catching up. There's a lot more organizations that are seeing, wow, we've lost a lot of women in the workforce because they couldn't figure out. And we had the great resignation that happened during the COVID years, because particularly this landed more with women. They were not getting able to navigate their work and what was going on with the babes and kids at home. That's a lot to lose in the workforce. That's a lot to lose in our economy, essentially. And so having some time off, if that's what you really, really desire, I say go for it. And going back to what we said earlier, Sarah, it could be that they say, I'm going to take a year off. And by 6 months, they're like, you know what? I think I want to be back at work. So it could be that thing where you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to take 5 years and you actually take a year, or I'm going to take a year and you only take 6 months, right? So what I would say is if something keeps persisting and you're resisting it, it means it needs tending to. So tend to it and see. Does it cut back on your career? It just all depends. To me, it's like a perspective change. Like, well, what is it that you're trying to accomplish and what ambition do you have? Because there's a lot of examples out there that people don't get what they want until they're 50 or 60 years old, right? And so I think it's also reframing the trajectory. And I'll say this one final thing. I've worked with a lot of women who come to me who are either parents or not, but they are like, I followed the rules. I went to college and university and I took that internship and I got that job and I did what I needed to do and I got promoted and promoted and promoted. And why am I miserable? So there's a reframe, because what I find in those instances, in those case studies, is they never paused, to your point earlier, and self-reflected and said, what do I want? What do I need? And I think that is so key to our fulfillment, to our happiness. Like, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? Having a baby is, I always say this in the workshop, having a baby is like probably one of the most purposeful things you will do in your life. And so if that purpose feels like I want to be with the baby and I can make it work, and pause your career trajectory for 2 years or 1 year or 6 months, I don't think you'll regret that.
Wonderful. Michelle, what final thoughts do you have that you want to share?
I want to share, trust yourself. Any new parent that's listening, trust yourself, give yourself time and space to think about what's right for you. Trust that if you're having feelings of guilt or you're having feelings of anxiety or whatever it is, just tend to it. It won't take as much time as you think. And then I think one of the benefits we get as parents is, if we've never known how to ask for help before, parenthood is a free pass to asking for help, because we have to ask for help. And so we learn to do that. And so that's one of the wins. That's one of the many gifts of being a new parent, is you get to learn to ask for help. So ask for help where you need it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Michelle, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
My website is greenlight-coaching.com. And I'm on Instagram, Greenlight Coaching, Facebook, Greenlight Coaching, and then under LinkedIn, Michelle McAndrew Olsen.
Okay, great. And I think you have an offer that you want to share with the listeners.
Yes. If you're someone who is in a position where you're returning to work and you're feeling confused, lost, scared, anxious, somewhat excited, whatever you are on the spectrum, I do offer a package of 3 coaching sessions. And if anybody's listening to this through Fourth Trimester, I will offer $100 off. And I believe Sarah will put that in the show notes. Return to WK is the coupon.
Perfect. Okay. Yes. We'll add those details in the show notes so people can take advantage of that offer. Thank you so much. And yeah, with that, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
You can subscribe to this podcast in order to hear more from us. Thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope you'll join us next time on the Fourth Trimester. The theme music on this podcast was created by Sean Trott. Hear more at soundcloud.com/Sean Trott. Special thanks to my true loves, my husband Ben, daughter Penelope, and baby girl Evelyn. Don't forget to share the Fourth Trimester podcast with any new and expecting parents. I'm Sarah Trott. Goodbye for now.
Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I'll sing a song for you. You got your wheels, you got your gears. You ride around town without any fear. You got your pedals, you got your brakes. You always wear your helmet for safety's sake. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing the best that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you.